Well, greetings to you. 40 years ago, my father wrote a book on the British Empire. It was hardback, might argue a little bit more of a memoir, and he went through every single country in the British Empire. Every single one, about population, GDP, all sorts of things on each simple one, so it was a wonderful late memoir. Now, I have visited probably a very, very high proportion of Commonwealth countries, which of course were British Empire in the old days. Now, what is quite interesting is the British Empire gets a very bad press from the BBC and the American public in particular, who have been brought up to hate the British Empire, and I'll come on to that in a minute. What is interesting is that it's very, certain people paint it in a very bad way, and in my experience is not the case. Wherever I go as an Englishman, wherever I go, and I've been to the Indian subcontinent, I've been to Australasia, I've been to all sorts of places, which the Empire wasn't at the moment. I'm speaking to you from Bridgetown. I was invited over here to have a look at their election procedures here. There's an election going on, and it's quite interesting because it's a Labour Party. They've got two parties you can vote for, and they're both the Labour Party. They're both called the Labour Party. There's been a split. It's a little bit like England. It's an honest uni party here in Bridgetown. It's an honest uni party. They actually say that it's a uni party, which is rather fun. No, but what is interesting is, particularly Americans who hate the British Empire, we'll leave the BBC alone because nobody really takes no notice of the BBC and they're dreadful people that they put on as presenters, and they're fake historians and so on and so forth. But just look at the American system, and I just have to guide the Americans a little bit. First of all, the British Empire was not all bad. Now, I hear this sometimes from academics who ought to know better, professors at Harvard and Chicago and all sorts of top universities who won't do their homework. The British Empire had its faults and made mistakes, but broadly speaking, as empires go, if you look back over history over thousands of years, you will find that the British Empire was actually quite a force for good in most ways. And that's certainly true if you visit Bridgetown and you go to church and you meet the local people, you're made extremely welcome if you are English, or British indeed. So that's the fact of the matter. If we were so bad, they'd shun us, wouldn't they? It's the same with the Indian subcontinent. They don't see us in a bad light. Some of their politicians do, but politicians, they're all crooks anyway. So this is one of the interesting things about the British Empire. Why are we made so welcome wherever we go if we were so bad? And of course, as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned, they view us in much the same way now as we might view the Roman Empire and the constructive things that they did. In the Indian subcontinent, they view the British who actually made their railways. We built their railways. We also did all sorts of other things like the Ordnance Survey map of the Indian subcontinent. We surveyed that, and that was a very, very big job indeed and very difficult. And we brought business and tea and coffee and things to East Africa and parts again of the Indian subcontinent. So we built on things. We gave them the English language. We had the democratic systems. So broadly speaking, with mistakes, yes, there were lots of mistakes, and I know all about that because I'm an historian. But generally speaking, the British Empire was much more of a force for good than it was a force for evil. Now, just let me give a little anecdote, and this is really largely directed at my American subscribers, and I have lots of very good American friends, and I've visited over 35 American states, so it is a country I know a little bit about, as far as what everyone can for a country that size. Now, listen in, my American friends. Your empire, and now the gloves are off now, you actually call it the empire, it's referred to as the empire, which of course is a relatively modern thing, but that's really what it is. We actually built lots of things, and if you visit where the British Empire was, you'll see lots of colonial buildings, you'll see aqueducts, you'll see railways, so on and so forth, that we brought things to the community. The trouble with the American system of empire, they just bomb everything out of existence and move on to the next place and bomb that out of existence, and that is one of the problems. I'll just make a little anecdote about this. In Barbados, most of the cab families are run by families, small families, and so brothers, sisters, and cousins and aunts all drive the car, or the reserve of cars that they have. Now, there's something about Barbados where the people are really, really charming and funny, and the interaction between the English, and it's very, very English here, is very relaxed, very empathetic, and it's a pleasure It's a pleasure to be here, and I was at church, St James's Church in Holtown, just on Sunday, and made extremely welcome there. And it's lovely to talk to these people, and they like to talk to us, and many have visited England as well these days. And of course it's the home of cricket. Gary Sobers, Everton Weekes, Frank Worrell, Wes Hall, some of the greatest cricketers of all time were born on this island. So cricket is, we have, and then cricket is very much thing we have in common. Now, the Chinese are building some hotels here at the moment, and we don't quite know how that's going to work out, but we'll see. But that's a relatively new phenomenon. But the Americans have built a great big hotel. Oh no, they took over a big hotel. It's a Marriott now, and it was owned locally by local people with a strong English inclination background, so on and so forth. And the first thing they did when they built this great big Marriott hotel in Barbados was to actually make sure that they punished the local cab drivers. They said, no, you can't have this sort of 5-year-old Toyota Corollas and all the rest of it. You've all got to have brand new Range Rovers. And of course the tax here means that a Range Rover, you're buying a new Range Rover here, will probably cost you £150,000. And that is so far above what anybody could possibly afford. It's possibly ridiculous. Now here's the thing with the Americans. They're sort of don't have any empathy at all to the countries that they go. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the people. And it's a young nation, America, admittedly, but they're so brash and they don't think about these things. The little family running the cab thing, that's not good for the economy. It's not good for local relations. It's very annoying and very stupid and very unnecessary. So I would counsel, as the new empire of the United States, to have an open-minded look at the British Empire and see what we did right, and why even today, wherever we go, we are welcome. And don't listen to the BBC. No, we are welcome, believe me. I've been everywhere. I've been to more countries, ex-empire countries, than any BBC man has ever been or even dreamt of going to. So I can tell you that that's the case. And of course the Christian faith is particularly helpful, perhaps when you're dealing with certain of these countries. That's something that we had in common. So don't listen all the time to our empire being bad. Our empire did a lot of good things, and of course we abandoned slavery, which is a disgusting thing, slavery anyway, but we abandoned that 30 years before the United States. So, think on everybody about what was good about the British Empire. There was a lot of good. Mistakes were made, what empire doesn't? But do jump up now if you're hearing somebody badmouth the British Empire and explain the good that we did and what we brought to the societies that we brought into the empire. And if you look at the celebrations, the Diamond Jubilees, for example, in the days of Queen Victoria, you'll see the pride that people have, not just the Brits, the pride that people who were members of the empire had in empire. And that reflected in things like the Indian Army and their performance in Burma in the war, so on and so forth. Just step back and assess it in the same way that history assesses the Roman Empire, the Persian Empire, or other empires, and take a balanced view. I do commend you to that, although I know a lot of my subscribers will already agree with me, because most of my subscribers, of course, have had the benefit of a traditional education. As most of you know, my work is very heavily independently research-based. And I get my information from all over the world. It would help if you press the subscribe button and the little bell next to it, because the more subscribers I have, the more likely it is that international independent research institutes will share their material with me. It's most helpful, and then of course I automatically share it with you. So, surprise, won't cost you anything. Thank you very much.